Mr. Transformers 96 here with more reveals from New York Toy Fair 2020. This time we have another wave of Marvel Legends figures, and it's from the Age of Apocalypse X-Men wave, and it is the Sugar Man Build-A-Figure. So this has been a long-rumored Build-A-Figure to accompany this wave, as we've seen a few figures from it a long time ago. I think Morph, if I'm not mistaken, was the first one to be shown. That was quite a while ago. So that's, ever since they announced a kind of Age of Apocalypse wave, people have speculated that this would be the Build-A-Figure, and they were proven correct, which is quite neat. I am quite a fan of really uniquely styled Build-A-Figures, and this one really checks that box, obviously. But before we get into the Build-A-Figure, let's go over the average figures in the wave. Starting off, we have Weapon X. Overall, looking very cool. I do like the crazy hair, and then his kind of hand chopped off, almost like a pirate claw, but Wolverine claws on his left arm. I think that he has an interesting look to him. However, I think that he's one of the more dull figures in the wave. Nonetheless, I think that the figure himself does look quite neat. Then Jean Grey. Jean Grey, I think, does look like a nice figure. I think that she's hilariously packaged. I love to see the scale of this thing just because she obviously is ridiculous. She looks like the accessory for the Build-A-Figure piece, which is very strange. I don't think there's ever been a Build-A-Figure piece quite like this, where it just takes up so much of the package that the figure has to be crammed to one side, and they have to be like physically tilted, so they're crammed, like literally crammed in the box. They should have almost pulled a parallax from Mattel and just put the last Build-A-Figure piece being the head and torso just in the box by itself, because it almost looks just ridiculous. Figure-wise, though, that Jean Grey does look quite nice. It does look like there's some newly sculpted pieces on it, too, which is very cool. Sunfire, I think, has a very unique look to him. I like the design of this character quite a bit, and I think that overall, I think it's executed quite nicely. It's your standard type of body sculpt. However, it does seem to have a translucent plastic to it, which gives it a nice pop with the black pieces that are painted onto it. It almost has that, very comic drawn type of feel to it, which I like. And then I like the neck fire piece. I think that looks quite good. Dark Beast, I think that's for sure the best figure of this wave. It just looks very neat. I like the idea of doing a Dark Beast, and I think the head sculpt looks awesome. Love the expression on him too, that big smirk, very Dark Beast-like, and just looks like a great figure. I'm a huge fan of the Beast figure that came out in the previous X-Men wave. I think it's one of the best Marvel Legends figures that they've done to date. If I'm not mistaken, it was my favorite Marvel Legends figure of last year. I'd have to go check that video again, but I believe that he was my #1 favorite figure. Because he's almost Build-A-Figure level on his own, which is quite cool. He looks awesome, and although, you don't have to buy him to complete the Sugar Man Build-A-Figure, but you obviously get his weapon, so there is like a little bonus for buying this one when it comes to the Build-A-Figure. However, it's not 100% necessary, which is interesting. Then we have X-Man. He looks very 90s styled, which I think is kind of neat. Some of the majority of the other figures in this wave have a comic look to them, in my opinion, while X-Man very much has a 90s animated show look, which I think is a unique take, especially with the ridiculous, shoulders. He's got very broad shoulders, and then it really slims down to the waist. Very animated show-like, not quite comic-like, in my opinion. So it depends what you're into. If you like that animated style and you're okay with it kind of comparing up with more comic style figures, it might clash a little bit. Nonetheless, though, I think it looks like an awesome figure. I think it's very cool in its design. I think the yellow details on it really pop, and I love the kind of energy effect piece on the eye there. I think that looks very cool. Then we have Morph. Morph I find to be the real lackluster of the group. I'm not really very familiar with the character, and the figure itself looks a little basic. It's your standard figure. It has some interesting paint on it, very much like Sunfire, but without the kind of translucent pieces, it loses its charm, I guess. It just doesn't look that good, in my opinion. Face sculpt is it's interesting, but a little plain, in my opinion. Then we have Wild Child. Wild Child looks pretty neat. My only issue with it is he does seem to be suffering from the Quicksilver syndrome, where they're using that very like small body, the like ultra small, like talk about a difference between Wild Child and X-Man. The shoulders on Wild Child, he's like just lacking shoulders. It goes from the head to the shoulders, no neck, no shoulders. Well, X-Man has like the largest shoulders you've ever seen, so they look very strange together. And I think because of that like lack of any shoulder, it gives him, it makes his head look too big, which is the same issue I had with Quicksilver. It looks like that's translating with Wild Child, which is unfortunately. Overall, though, I think this is an extremely unique wave. I think that this is great for any hardcore, Age of Apocalypse type of fans. However, I think that that is a little more niche than the usual Marvel Legends wave. Therefore, I'll be interested to see how this wave does perform. I think that the people that it's intended for will just eat it up, but I think that the kind of mainstream, more casual comic book, or superhero fans that collect Marvel Legends might pass on a lot of these. I think that Sugar Man is a character that personally I haven't found too much interest in, to be quite honest, but I think that the design of the character is so ridiculous that it's kind of neat. He doesn't look super Marvel-like to me, though. I think that's one of my biggest issues with him, is that he has like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle bad guy type of look, which, clashes with the design of, I think, Marvel. Because you have ridiculous-looking characters with like an oversized head that is the body, like MODOK. But MODOK, to me, very much looks and feels like Marvel, while Sugar Man doesn't scream Marvel to me, to be honest. That might just be a personal thing, many people might not have that same issue, but for me, it's an issue I have. I will say that the Build-A-Figure, this is an impressive Build-A-Figure as a Build-A-Figure, though. I love the style of it. It looks massive. You get so much with them, too, just like with Jean Grey, where the entire box is the Build-A-Figure piece, and then Sunfire and X-Man come with his arms, which is awesome because you get two arms with both of them, and they're very long, big arms. So this just feels like a really meaty, chunky a Build-A-Figure, which I think is awesome. So as a Build-A-Figure, I love it. Character-wise, it's just not one that I'm particularly interested in, but I love the Build-A-Figure nature of it, because I think that they nailed that. So overall, what I plan to do with this wave, I am trying to cut back on Marvel Legends just as a whole, and really just buy the ones that are absolutely necessary. Had it been a year or two ago, I probably would have bought this entire wave just because it's super unique, and the Build-A-Figure is really unique. However, since I am trying to cut back a little bit, I think that I am going to skip this wave entirely, to be quite honest. The only exception to that would be, if I was able to get it for a good deal, because I like the style of the Build-A-Figure quite a bit. And then Dark Beast as well as X-Man are figures that I don't need, but I would not mind having. I think that they look quite neat. The others look fine. None jump off the box to me personally. I'm not dying for any of them. But nonetheless, that's just because I'm not a huge Age of Apocalypse fan. I don't know a terribly large amount about some of these characters. But nonetheless, I think that this is a really unique wave, and I think that the people that it's really intended for are just going to love it, to be honest. So that's my thoughts on this new Marvel Legends wave with the Sugar Man Build-A-Figure. Let me know what you guys think of the wave, and thanks so much for watching.